Okay, quick walkthrough for the blood work menu and things that are included in the comprehensive panel. So CBC with differential platelet, a pretty underutilized test, even though it's ordered a lot. Sometimes they don't order the differential. Two different types of blood cells. You have red and you have white. Red blood cells tell us how well you're able to deliver oxygen to every cell in the body. So if your ability to do that is impaired, you're going to see issues with fatigue. So that would be different types of anemia, whether that's iron, B12, folic acid, those kinds of things will be seen there. With the white blood cell count, even more important when it comes to inflammation and what the immune system is concerned about. If either the white blood cells are elevated or depressed is very important, whether that's an old issue or a new issue. And then if your body is, for instance, producing a lot of allergy-related white blood cells, and that means that potentially there's an allergy issue, maybe a parasite issue. Whether there's bacterial, viral fighting things. This is super important and a good introductory to direction and where to go when it comes to inflammation. So super important here. You're almost always going to find something here when there's some inflammatory issue. Lipid panel, secondary to a lot of the inflammatory stuff. You might find differences between the different types of cholesterol, whether you're overproducing or under converting cholesterol is important as well. Cholesterol is the backbone of all steroid hormones, also vitamin D, and then cholesterol makes up every cell wall in the body. So if there's a lot of destruction of tissue, sometimes you see elevations of cholesterol from that purpose. Triglycerides. Some people actually have functionally low triglycerides. High triglycerides mean another thing. So as far as metabolic health, inflammatory type stuff, even cholesterol issues, you'll be able to, or even thyroid issues, you'll see differences and changes throughout that. The chem panel, metabolic panel, you're going to get your fasting glucose, very important for blood sugar stuff, obviously. CO2, very important for blood sugar stuff. You're going to see potentially differences between the BUN, creatinine, and uric acid levels, which might tell us also potentially some different nutrient deficiencies, whether you prefer different pathways of the other when it comes to ammonium detoxification. Also included in there is an LDH. It's one of the other blood sugar markers. Sometimes that might indicate drops in blood sugar, reactive hypoglycemia. And then, of course, if the liver enzymes are elevated, that might also tell us if tissues are inflamed and what specific tissues are inflamed, whether that's related to various different conditions. You'll be able to see that shift in electrolytes also there might indicate some adrenal stress. All different kinds of stuff that when you actually look at things from a functional level, you might actually be able to pick up. Thyroid panel, of course, picks up all broad 6 categories of thyroid problems, the 24 patterns that fit within those. For instance, if you have category 1, that might be driven by A, B, C, or D, but at least it narrows it down to those 4. Because of the way this panel is constructed, you'll be able to see A, B, C, or D on this panel, and you'll be able to prioritize B or A or whatever it is that seems to be the most raging problem. Thyroid is very sensitive to what's going on. Obviously, it upregulates, downregulates a lot of metabolic processes in the body, so if you're trying to conserve resources, you're going to see that in the thyroid panel. Vitamin D levels, pretty straightforward there. Also, a couple inflammatory markers that are very important are homocysteine and CRP. A lot of people talk about the MTHFR gene, and if you have that gene, you'll be able to see problems in the homocysteine levels being elevated. If you have the gene and those are completely normal, then it's not really a factor for you, so that's important to know. Even if you don't have that mutation and this is elevated, it's very important. So really, the mutation in that marker, it's not all that important to know, to be honest, and it's pretty straightforward in addressing. It's just this marker is very important to watch, no matter who you are. High levels of homocysteine means low levels of glutathione, the most powerful antioxidant in the body. So very important to know. Anemia panel, not only knowing straightforward whether you have an iron deficiency, but also sometimes what you'll see is low iron and high ferritin, which is an acute phase reactant. Iron deficiency of chronic inflammation. So very important to pay attention to that. In that case, your body is sequestering iron or storing iron in the liver as ferritin in a response to a inflammatory state. So something you want to see improve over time if you're trying to reduce inflammation, whether that's from an autoimmune perspective or otherwise. You'll see that even in people that don't have autoimmune issues. Of course, including magnesium, you'll see that we have certain nutrients included in here to see if you have some deficiencies, but not all nutrients are reliably measured in blood work. So we want to make sure that we just include the ones that are reliable and not ones that we're going to miss. There may be a nutrient, say manganese, that is not, you can measure it in the blood, but whether that's low or not is not very sensitive in its ability to pick up a deficiency. So you'd hate to be like, well, you're good on manganese, and then later you could have been benefiting from manganese this whole time. So you want to kind of be careful with these kinds of tests that you order. Also, things you included, you want to definitely include an A1C, and if not, the most important blood sugar marker would be insulin, because glucose and A1C, as long as your body's able to adapt to and compensate for your problems, the insulin's going to be a lagging indicator. The glucose and insulin are going to be a lagging indicator. Insulin, as your body stops listening to insulin, your glucose, it's still going to want to keep it consistent. So instead of letting your blood sugar rise, it's just going to produce more insulin. And over time, you're going to get to the point where even though you're producing a lot of insulin, your body's still not listening. And so at that time, you start to get the elevation. So you want to see what this is first. And that's, of course, just in relation to diabetes. But you want to take insulin, glucose, and A1C, take a composite score of that. It's your HOMA, HOMAIR score. So you can look into that if you want. You want it to be around 1. Folic acid, obviously, B9. So, and then this one, ANA, autoimmune marker. It's not, there's a lot of debate with this marker, but what it tells me is that your inflammatory issue that you do have, say you have some acute phase reactants positive there, is that it may be more difficult to resolve your issue, or in giving a prognosis of like timeline of how fast things you would expect to get better, maybe this would be a little bit more difficult of a case. And because there is some autoimmune component to it, there's a whole video I can do on ANA, and I'm not going to get into it with just this brief introduction of what blood work we're ordering. But if you have any questions on the specifics, that's pretty much the gist of it. I think it's a pretty good panel, but I'm a little biased. If you want me to go over it, if you're going through this process through Rupa, just let me know. We can. Otherwise, good luck, and let me know if you have any questions when trying to order different labs.